Hello friends, now we will see another very important the way the material fails, and that is called fatigue through fatigue. Okay, and you must have tried this and you use this particular idea to break. Let us say if you have a aluminium wire and you want to break it, how you break it? You keep on doing something like this, okay, and then it breaks. So, this basically what you are doing is you are doing a fatigue test, and because my stress amplitude is very high, okay, it fractures in no time. But in actual practice of engineering application, the lot of materials are subjected to this kind of loading. Okay. For example, if you have a shaft, so continuously it is experiencing compressive and tensile stresses. So, when if this is the shaft, at the top it will be if it is like sagging like this, because under its own weight you will have compressive stresses here and tensile here, and when it rotates, okay, now this is tensile and this is compressive. So, it is continuously seeing this cyclic loading of tensile and compressive, okay. And for example, in automobile, any material used in automobile application, they will always see this kind of fatigue loading, because you are continuously moving on a road, you are going to see bumps and all that, and these are going to introduce a fatigue kind of loading on the material. Okay. So, this is some very popular pictures you will see for problem with the fatigue. Okay. As you can see, this is actually a aeroplane, and the upper portion of that is already blown away. Okay. And the problem, when it was investigated, it was traced back to the fatigue loading of the structure. Okay. And because of that it failed. And if you do any fatigue testing, these are the typical features you will see. Okay. So, somewhere here you had the origin, and then you see this kind of markings here, and then you will have a final failure zone. Okay. So, this is sudden problem with fatigue failure also is that it is sudden fracture after a certain cyclic loading of the material, and the cyclic loading can be in elastic regime only. Okay. So, during the design, okay, you have taken care that the stresses on any structural component is not going to go beyond the elastic limit. In fact, you have taken some factor of safety also. Okay. So, your loads are much lower than the yield stress of the material. But if it is the material is loaded under the fatigue loading, okay, it may fail under that kind of service loads also. Okay. So, that is a problem, and if you are not able to detect, what will happen initially, it is a slow process, and then you have a sudden fracture, okay, catastrophic fracture, and that is the problem with the fatigue failure. So, damage accumulates due to repeated application of load, which is well below the yield point. Okay. So, load can be well below the yield point, and it is still the material will fracture. Okay. And as I told you, again, these are the typical markings. So, here actually it is a shaft, and you can see there is a keyhole here. Okay. And because of the keyhole, you have some sharp corners at these two locations. Okay. And that will initiate the crack. Okay. So, there the crack has initiated, you can see the origin is marked there. So, the crack will initiate here, and slowly it will move, okay, and finally you will have fracture in the final portion. So, fatigue failure, if I want to divide, I can divide it into 3 zones. Okay. So, it can be, first is crack initiation, then you will have crack growth, and then it is a catastrophic fracture, okay, final fracture. So, I can divide the failure into these 3 categories. Okay. And as I told you, I have shown you couple of micrographs, okay, where people have shown very nicely that there are different features present on the fracture surface. So, what features you will see? The features will be this concentric, what we call as clam shells. Okay. It looks like the surface of the shell, you see there are markings like this. Okay. So, there is a crack initiation site somewhere, wherever the flaw is there, wherever there is a stress concentration is there. From there the crack will slowly propagate, okay, and you will get this kind of clamshells, okay, concentric circles basically. In this clamshells region also there are some concentric beach marks or striations, okay. These are microscopic. So, clamshells are macroscopic, you can see that I could easily see in a simple photograph, okay, these kind of markings, okay. But if I go in the using some microscope within these clamshells also you have another features which is called striations, okay. Then you have this final fracture. So, when of course, as we have already discussed that when my stress intensity factor goes beyond critical stress intensity factor, then there will be fracture. So, this is a crack which has initiated and propagate up to this point. So, for this given crack length, if my stress intensity factor is more than the critical stress intensity factor of the material, then the fracture will take place, okay. So, it can be a ductile, it can be brittle depending upon what is the stress state of stress, okay, or what is the condition of the material. So, when the crack may become large enough to satisfy the energy or stress intensity criteria for rapid propagation, it will fail under ductile or brittle fracture mode, okay. Now, how the crack initiates, okay. So, when this cyclic loading is going on, what will happen wherever there are some flaws, okay, there will be some plastic deformation, local plastic deformation because of the some stress concentration. So, there can be flaws or there can be flaws in the design itself, okay. So, what will happen locally, the stress will be high enough to initiate the deformation. So, because of this cyclic loading, the deformation will kind of go in and go out, okay. So, there will be this intrusion and extrusion of the crystal plane. So, wherever the maximum shear is there, shear stress is acting. So, you will have slip process, okay. So, slip process will be like this because of the cyclic loading. In some cases it will go, slip will go in some cases because of the slip the material will come out, okay. So, that is what is shown here, this is going in, this is coming out, okay. And because of this going in coming out, you can see that if I want to show it as like a crack, it will show a crack like this, okay. So, you have a crack with this radius of curvature like this, and because this is at atomic scale almost, the crack will be quite sharp here. Similarly, if I want to show it as a crack, I can show it like this, okay. So, now you have initiated a crack in the material by this repeated loading, okay. So, crack initiates like this, then once it initiates it has to grow, okay. So, after initiation it will grow, and this growth can be divided into 3 stages, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, which is also shown schematically here. So, in stage 1, after initiation of crack, it grows along the slip plane. So, the crack will grow along the slip planes, okay. So, it is similar to what you will see in a transgranular brittle fracture, where the crack is going through the grain along the slip planes. Fracture surface is usually featureless, this will have a cleavage kind of fracture. So, and usually it is featureless, you will not see very nice features here, and rate of propagation is slow. So, in this early part it is the crack is going to grow at a very slow pace, okay. The stage 2nd is crack turn to propagate transversely to the principal normal stress. So, suppose you are applying a stress like this. So, whichever is the maximum principal stress, okay, so crack will grow transverse to that. So, if stress is applied in this direction, my growth is going to be at 90° to that, okay. So, it propagates transversely to the principal normal stress, and fracture surface shows striations, typical features of fatigue failure. So, here you see the clamshells and the striations. So, macroscopically you will see the clamshells, microscopically you will see the striations. Then the stage third will come, the fatigue crack become large, and if it crosses the critical stress intensity factor of the material, it will have the very catastrophic fracture in the last stage. Now, how the striations will look like? So, clamshells we have already seen, okay, and microscopically we said that it will be striations, and these striations are also kind of a very nice morphology is there, and these are also called beach marks. So, on the beach you will see the sand is arranged in this fashion, okay, because of each wave is coming like that, okay. So, these are called beach marks also, and what it represent is, it represent the crack arrest and growth in steps, okay. So, crack propagation rate is high in this stage, okay. So, how it forms, okay. So, as I told you that the crack propagates only under tensile mode, okay. So, suppose the cycle is such that it is going into tensile mode, then it is going into compressive mode and so on. For example, taking the example of a shaft. So, when the shaft is like this, you have compressive here, tensile here, suppose it is sagging in its own weight, and if I rotate it by 180 degree, the tensile will become compressive and compressive will become tensile. So, my material is continuously going in this cycle. Now, what will happen, as I told you that in tensile mode the crack will open up, and the compressive mode actually crack will close down. So, the crack will propagate only in the tensile mode, and then it will close down, then again it will go and again it will close down, okay. So, that is why you see the striation because of the crack propagating in each cycle, and schematically it is shown here that how it will grow in each cycle, okay. So, when we are going into tensile mode, it will go forward, in the compressive mode it will be closed, again in tensile mode it will go forward and so on, okay. So, you can almost see that if you can measure the distance between the two striations, that how much crack has propagated in one cycle, okay. That you can easily find out from a micrograph like this. Now, coming to the stress cycle which you are going to impose, okay, just want to understand that what do we mean by this cyclic loading, okay. So, of course, this is a very theoretical kind of cyclic loading, sinusoidal cyclic loading. In practice it will be very random cycle. So, you can have some kind of loading like this, maybe with lot of suddenly some spike or something like this. It can be a very random cycle. We cannot impose that in our machines, okay. So, what we usually choose is sinusoidal cycle, or maybe some simple cycles like a square wave like this, or maybe a trapezoid kind of cycle like this and so on, okay. Suppose we have a sinusoidal cycle, okay. So, it is going like this. So, you have now there are different terms defined here, and those are expressed here with relationships. So, as I told you, in reality stress cycles are more complex and unpredictable, thus fatigue properties are to be treated statistically. So, you have to do a lot of fatigue tests to actually find out what should be the fatigue properties of a given material, and you have to treat the whole analysis statistically, okay. So, let us see what we have. If in the sinusoidal cyclic loading, you have maximum stress, this is the minimum stress, okay. Now, depending upon how you are imposing it, it can both can be in tensile, or maximum, this sigma max can be tensile, this sigma minimum can be compressive, okay. So, there can be different modes in which you can impose this the cycle. As I told you, compressive mode the crack does not propagate. So, usually to accelerate the testing, usually both the sigma max and sigma minimum are chosen in tensile mode, so that the crack will propagate quickly, okay. So, this is maximum and minimum. Then you have what we call as a stress amplitude, okay. So, basically wherever is your mean value, okay, above that you have half as sigma max, another half as sigma minimum. So, stress range will be basically sigma max minus sigma minimum, that is given as sigma r or delta sigma. The stress amplitude is you subtract sigma max minus sigma minimum and divide it by 2 to get this average. So, it will be sigma max minus sigma minimum upon 2 or sigma r by 2. Sigma mean is basically maximum and minimum and divided by 2. So, this is your sigma mean above the this is my I think the 0. So, it will be compressive here and tensile there. Then you have a stress ratio which is minimum sigma minimum upon sigma maximum, and amplitude ratio is sigma amplitude divided by sigma mean. So, all these parameters have affect the fatigue life or fatigue properties. Okay. So, of course, we are not going into detail of all effect of all these parameters on the fatigue life of the material or fatigue properties of the material, but this is what you have to choose when you are doing any fatigue testing. So, basically when you do fatigue testing, what you get is we call it as SN curve. So, S is basically stress and N is number of cycles. So, you take the delta sigma, that is the stress range, okay, as we have just shown here. Delta sigma is your stress range on the y axis, and there you have a number of cycles. So, for different stress range, they are trying to find out that how many number of cycle the material is going to survive or sample is going to survive. So, you can see that for higher stress range, okay, where sigma max and sigma minimum gap is more. So, you are applying higher stress range here, okay. You can see that my material is surviving lower number of cycles. If I reduce the stress range, okay, sigma max is reduced, sigma minimum and sigma max the difference is reduced, delta sigma is reduced, then you can see that my material is going to survive more number of cycles. So, this is the empirical method of quantifying fatigue process or fatigue properties, statistical in nature. Okay. So, you have to do lot of tests to get this kind of curve, required large number of tests at different mean stress or stress amplitude. So, you have to keep changing all those parameters which we discussed in the previous slide, okay, to get this kind of curves. For some material there is also a property called endurance limit, okay, and it says failure will not occur if stress amplitude is below this limit irrespective of number of cycles. In aluminum it does not exist. So, you see that we have done one fatigue curve for carbon steel, another for aluminum. So, in carbon steel, if you see, if I keep on reducing the stress amplitude, my material is able to survive for more number of cycles, and after a certain stress amplitude it has become independent of stress amplitude. So, now my material can survive for any number of cycle if the stress amplitude is below this value. So, it is a very good thing for a designer that if he can maintain the stress amplitude below this endurance limit, he is not worried about the fatigue life of the component. In aluminum, however, you see that it does not behave like this, it is continuously decreasing as a function of stress amplitude. So, it is always going to fail at some point, okay, at some number of cycles, that can be very high, 10 to the power 7 is a very high cycle, or 10 to the power 8 and so on. Okay. So, this is a very good property for steels, that they have an endurance limit. So, your stress amplitude, if it is below this, stress ratio is below, stress range is below this, then you will not have any fracture for any number of cycles. Okay. Now, crack growth rate is kind of characterized by Paris law. Okay. And what it says is, it is important to know that how the crack is going to, at what rate the crack growth will take place, so that I know that when I can replace a part. Okay. So, it is observed that crack growth rate can be correlated with cyclic variation in the stress intensity factor. So, what we have done is, we have again brought the stress intensity factor here. So, delta sigma is expressed as delta k now. So, k max is for sigma max using sigma max. K minimum is used by putting sigma minimum in the equation. Okay. So, I can say that it is delta sigma basically. Y is again your value on which your this thing will depend. Okay. So, maybe if I have put under root pi here already, I do not have to put y here, okay, because I have already taken care of that. So, the delta k gives me k max, k minimum. So, k max corresponds to sigma max in your stress cycle and k minimum correspond to sigma minimum. And this Paris law suggests that this is related to your crack growth rate. Okay, let me put instead of A, let me put it as C, sorry. Okay, because this is the crack growth rate as a function of number of cycles. So, because C we are using as crack length, I am going to use C here. So, it is dC by dN extension in crack for a given number of cycle. Okay. So, dC by dN. So, crack growth rate per cycle. So, again here also I am going to put as C. Okay. So, that is related to this stress intensity factor, okay, delta k, and to the power some p, okay, and A is your some constant, A and P are constant that depend on material, environment and test condition. So, for some materials the P and A are given here. So, for steel P is 3, for aluminum also it is 3, nickel it is 3.3, for titanium it is 5, and these are the A values for different these materials. Okay. So, by knowing that I can find out that what will be the crack growth rate as a function of number of cycles. Okay. And this is how the crack growth rate will behave. So, again you can see that there are 3 zones here. Okay. So, I can divide it into 3 zones. So, as a function of stress intensity factor delta k, the crack growth rate is plotted here. So, if stress intensity factor is lower in the initial part, okay, the crack growth rate will be very high, okay, as you increase the delta k. Then in some in one zone it becomes the delta k and dA by dN, okay, they almost start following a linear relationship. So, P is here 1 here for example, and then you have the final catastrophic failure. So, in the same test actually delta k will keep on changing. Okay. Why? Because my crack is growing. So, as you can see that for in k you get some delta under root of C, the remaining things I am not writing here. Okay. So, my this crack is growing continuously. So, my k is also going to be increasing as a function of crack growth rate or crack growth. Okay. So, this is for one single test that initially you will have this crack growth rate, then it will become where it is start following the Paris law, and then you will have the unstable crack growth rate where it is going to fail catastrophically. So, this is your crack initiation part. Okay, and then you have crack propagation where Paris law is followed, and then you have accelerated crack growth rate. Okay. Now, fatigue life depends on these parameters. Okay. So, surface finish, so, as you can see that when we said that the initiation of crack takes place because locally if there is going to be any defect, okay, the material will start locally the stress will be high. So, it will have some plastic deformation locally, and because of this intrusion extrusion you will initiate a crack there. So, I can improve the fatigue life of a material if I do a very good surface finish, good nice surface finish with using buffing and so on, okay, grinding, buffing and so on. So, if I improve the surface finish, kind of remove all the small defects on the surface, I will be able to improve the fatigue life. Okay. So, surface finish is very important. Okay. You have to have very good nice surface finish of your material or whatever application you are using in. Then grain size. So, grain boundaries are effective obstacle to crack propagation. Okay. So, decrease in grain size improves the fatigue life. So, suppose as we showed you that these are the two grains, suppose if it is a transgranular fracture also, the crack propagate in this direction on a certain crystallographic plane, and the next grain this crystallographic plane may be in some other orientation. So, now crack has to deviate from this location to this direction to some other direction. Okay. So, this kind of provide an obstacle to that. Suppose the crack is going through the grain boundary, okay, then what will happen, that it is growing through the grain boundary, then the grain boundary orientation has changed. So, it has to move in a different grain boundary now. So, grain boundaries provide very good obstacle to crack propagation. Okay. So, if I decrease the grain size, I will increase the grain boundary area. Okay. So, I am able to provide more obstacles to crack propagation. Then the residual stress, as I told you, compressive stresses are good because they close the cracks. Okay. So, if I induce compressive stresses in the material on the surface, okay, what will happen is that when I am applying a tensile stress, some tensile stress will go in cancelling out the compressive stress, and my material will experience only some part of that applied tensile stress. Okay. So, inducing any compressive stresses on the surface is very good for residual stress for improvement in fatigue life. Okay. So, compressive residual stress helps in closing the crack. So, one of the method to introduce these compressive stresses on the surface of the material is called short peening. Okay. Short peening means we take small steel balls and we strike the surface at very high velocity. These steel balls go and hit the surface of the material. Okay. So, what it does when it hits, it induces compressive stresses in the material. Okay. And when you have this kind of compressive stresses, then it will be good for your fatigue life. Environment, if your material is corroding, this corrosion itself will act like a flaw, okay, will initiate cracks. Okay. So, we should not have any corroding environment around a component which is going to experience the fatigue cycle. Okay. So, these things we have to keep in mind when we are using any material under fatigue application. Okay. So, with that I thank you. This is one of the very important topic. Okay. And I hope that you have understood the topic and you will appreciate it. Thank you.